Hello and welcome to SharpHR Career Corner with Karen Sharp Price. This podcast will inform and inspire you in your quest to find the right career path. If you're just starting out, looking to make a change in your field, or transitioning into a new career, then this podcast is for you. We will be sharing tips and providing resources on topics such as writing resumes, interviewing, using LinkedIn, and networking. We will take a look at different careers, companies, and opportunities. You will hear success stories from professionals in all career paths, and so much more. You will leave this podcast with 3 key takeaways that you can easily put into practice. Enjoy!
Welcome to SharpHR Career Corner. I'm Karen Sharp Price. Today we're going to talk to Gina Phillips from Western New York Divorce Financial Advisors and hear about her own career story. Gina and I met through Grow Buffalo Business. Hi, Gina. Thanks for being on SharpHR Career Corner today.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Good. It's a sunny day, so it's great.
Yeah, thank you for being on. Let's start back your college days. You went to Niagara University for accounting. What were you hoping to do after you graduated with your accounting degree?
Well, at the time, there was the Big 10. I thought I was going to be a CPA and work for a big accounting firm. During the course of the interview process, I actually connected more with 2 big local banks. So I had an opportunity to work at a local bank, HSBC, in the internal audit department. And it just fit. It just was good timing.
Okay. And so over the course of the next 10 years after that, you worked in like the banking industry as well. What made you move out of the banking industry?
Well, actually, what I did was I became a stay-at-home mom.
Okay.
My former husband's business career took off, and he was traveling and entertaining, and it was difficult to have my career going at the same time. But along the way, I always did side projects. I had like a side business, or I took care of a 6-unit apartment building, accounting. So I
Wow.
kept myself active. I was very active with my son in the PTA and being in charge of different things. So I kept my mind in activities busy.
When you were doing that as a stay-at-home mom, because there are a number of women out there who have to make that decision to, do they stay at home or do they keep working? And if they stay home, how do they stay involved? What will the next 10 years look like on their resume? How do they get back in if they want to? Was that a really tough decision for you when you had to do that?
It was tough. We were really in a unique situation that we didn't financially, we were under living. So it made it easier for me to do that.
Yeah.
And we always had the option of, if his business started going down, I could always go back to work, especially with an accounting degree. I could be a bookkeeper. There was a lot of different things. It was hard. I never thought I would be a stay-at-home mom when I started off in this world.
Oh,
My mom was a stay-at-home mom. But I did, like I said, I kept very active. I was always I was at my son's elementary school almost every day, helping and volunteering. So I kind of gave back to the community during that time.
yep.
And like I said, I always did my everyday finances and like had a small business. So I kept up on like Excel and, so I wasn't just, cleaning and doing housework. I was
Right.
doing other things too along the
Yeah.
way.
And you know what? I think that is really key to stay involved. When I did the same thing, I took time off, but I kept my foot in the door and I was always doing things. And then I joined a mother's group and I became like a leader in that. And so I just always, I don't think I was really thinking about it and thinking about what my resume was going to look like, after I finished raising my sons, but I was always trying to stay active and out in the public and in the community and in doing things. And I think that helped me greatly when I really wanted to go back full time. And I did the same thing. I would take on projects as I could, which allowed me the opportunity to kind of do both. And you kind of need that for your sanity. I think,
Oh,
as
oh,
a mother.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I remember, when he got on the bus for kindergarten, because I stopped working when he was about 3.5. And the girl next door to me goes, okay, we're following the school bus. I'm like, really? I can do that? But that just gave me peace of mind. I was only fortunate to have one child. And it gave me a peace of mind to be with him and be there. And if he got sick, I was there and not have to worry about it, especially because, yeah, like I said, my husband at the time was traveling a lot, was entertaining a lot. So when we sat down to figure out how much money are we making by me working, paying a nanny and doing all these things, it didn't make sense for a period of time. It
Yeah.
really didn't. We were paying more in taxes than we were making, and I was losing that time with him. So it just, you've got to decide what's best for your situation though.
Yeah. And everybody has a different situation. I remember doing the same thing with the bus and beating the bus to the school so that I could get that picture of them coming off of
Well,
the bus.
you say that, but the first 3 years my son was in elementary school, I was in charge of the yearbook. So like I was there all the time taking pictures. So like, from kindergarten to like second grade, there's like, I have all the kids, and it was fun. It was, and everybody wanted me, everybody was my friend then because they wanted their kid in the yearbook,
Yes. Yes. I remember those days, and boy, they go by fast. I mean,
yes.
you look back. So how long did you take off?
I took off from 2000, about 10 years. I took off
Okay.
about 10 years. It
Yeah.
was almost exactly 10 years
Yeah. That's
that I took off. And I was contemplating when that time was off, do I go back to school? I
huh?
come from a family of teachers. Do I become a teacher? And like I taught religious ed and said, no, I don't want to be a teacher. So I was contemplating what direction I wanted to go back into the workforce. And
Was that
then,
hard to, when you decided that you were going to go back, what, do you remember how you were feeling about the whole thing, about stepping back in?
well, I was nervous. And at the time I was in the midst of my divorce. So I knew I
Um,
had to find something that worked, but still worked with my schedule because I was the primary caregiver for my son. So I knew I had to have some flexibility. And I was fortunate that there was a part-time position, and I went back part-time for about a year and a half working as an accountant at my church. And it worked out. It worked out great because I could drop my son off at school, do what I needed to do and be home for him. And if I had to take a day off, there was some flexibility. Just the work had to be done during that week. The bills and things like that had to be paid.
So I mean, that is really an added stress because here I am, I took time off and I probably took about 10 years and I was still working along the way, just, projects and things like that and staying active with certificates and,
Right.
webinars and all that kind of stuff. And then that feeling that you get when you're not sure if you've lost what you had beforehand in just knowledge and skill and all of that. And really those 10 years, you're adding to those skills and you're adding to the knowledge, but your self-confidence seems to slowly deteriorate. I mean, I don't
Oh,
know. I think I felt
yeah,
that.
yeah, absolutely. I think that it was a great transition for me. And what was great was the business manager at the time was just starting out. And we both were very similar. She was a CPA and we were stay at home. She had 3 children. She was juggling. And so it was a good opportunity. So if I didn't remember how to do an Excel spreadsheet or, whatever, she was there to help me, and she understood, and we would help each other out. And I think I'm glad I went back part-time. I mean, originally it was like 25 hours, then it went up to 32 hours. And I think that really helped me ease into trying to navigate.
Yeah.
At the time, my son was in fifth grade, sixth grade. No, excuse me, seventh grade. So he was older. So
Yep.
I could leave him alone. And it was a better situation for me. But,
Right.
being defined as somebody's wife or somebody's mother, you get that label on you and you don't know, can I do something else?
Yeah.
Especially when it's a period of time that you were out of the workforce.
Yeah. And prior to that, we all were independent, and we were that person, whoever that was, in what we were doing. And we felt
Right.
really, I think most of us probably felt pretty confident in what we were doing, but taking that
Mhm.
time off, and all of a sudden, um, thinking, the time that you've missed, what has happened, what have you missed out on, to go back into it. But I think that the things that we both did, staying active and staying involved and picking up some projects, and, just staying with our foot in the door, I think helps. I really do. So for women out there that are going through that, and are thinking about, what should I do now? Do I go back into the career I had before, or do I go into something totally different? One, it's a great time to figure that out, because you could do something different. It's your chance to start over again, if that's something that you want to do. But also, take the opportunities that you've had during that period of time, and use that to your advantage when you're trying to sell yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Because, that's the thing. I think the relationships you learn as a stay-at-home mom are really key into helping you work in different environments,
Yeah.
because you're in mommy groups, or you're doing this at the school. You're meeting a lot of different people and a lot of different personalities.
Yes.
And I think that everything we do, we learn. And if, as long as we take that knowledge and learn with it, like I said, if I didn't try teaching religious ed, I might have gone and get my teaching certificate and hated it after a year. So
Yeah.
I'm glad I had the opportunity to kind of try it out for a summer
Oh,
and
yeah.
realize that, no, this is not my calling. So, and I like teaching people things, but not in that environment.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
it was, I, there's nothing in my life that I regret. I think everything is a lesson to be learned when you have your life.
Absolutely. And I think the other point that you had brought up was, having that support. So who that person was that you started working with, and you started helping each other because you were sort of coming from the same place. I think as women, we need to have that support system around us, and you need to kind of seek out the women that can kind of build you up, and kind of stand next to you and walk with you through that process, because you have it inside of you, but you just need sometimes, that extra little push or confidence from somebody else. And so I think that that's, really important to have. Don't do it alone. Get a little bit of a support system around you to help you
Oh,
out.
you've always got to be willing to ask for help. I don't
Yep.
think in life you've got to. You can be an independent woman and self-sufficient with your finances, but know what your strengths are, but know when you're not strong at something, and get the help you need for that.
Yes.
So that's definitely, what happened. And then she subsequently left, and I ended up becoming the business manager of the
Oh.
church. So I ended up working there for about 5.5 years in total. And it was a great
Oh.
experience.
It's funny
So
how things open up, isn't it? How opportunities just kind of present themselves, and you have to be ready and willing to take those chances. But it works. It works out for you. It does.
yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And at the time my son was going into high school. So it was like perfect timing for me.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
So
yeah. So we're gonna take a short break, and we're gonna play a game of get to the point. I'm gonna ask you some random questions, and you just have to answer whatever pops into your head. So are you ready?
okay.
Oh, it'll be
Hopefully.
fun. I promise. Okay, so in the time of the pandemic, virtual or in person?
Um I miss in person, I'm gonna
Okay.
say.
Okay. Buffalo pizza or wings?
Oh, I'm a pizza girl.
Okay. Social media of choice nowadays.
I actually Facebook, but I'm not on anything else. So really Facebook is my social media choice.
Okay. Dog or cat?
Oh, dog. I'm on my second rescue. So yeah.
Oh, okay. Relaxation of choice. We all need one right now.
I love walking. I really feel that sometimes in the middle of the day, if I'm stressed and to take a nice little walk outside, I'm fortunate to live in a great neighborhood to walk. So I'd say walking.
Okay. Books or music?
Music.
All right.
I love going to live music. That's one thing I really am missing.
Yeah, well,
Really missing.
hopefully the
Yeah,
summer's gonna bring some back. We're all
right.
hoping for that. What do you like most about Buffalo?
I just think it's like 5 degrees of separation or 3 degrees of separation. I really think that it's such a friendly town to live in and everybody's always willing to help you. I actually grew up in Niagara Falls,
Oh, okay.
which isn't that far. And,
Right.
I'm not in the city, but I really even feel like if you say you're from Niagara Falls, there's at least 3 people they know from there too. That's even smaller. But I really think that the camaraderie and the way we help each other, like you said, we met through Grow. And I just really feel I've never been in a networking group where I felt in competition or uncomfortable or where I couldn't ask an expert an opinion or get to know them on a one-to-one basis.
Yeah.
So that's what I feel is great about Buffalo.
Okay. Choice of beverage.
Oh, if it's alcoholic, I'm a vodka girl. But most of the time I'm a water or tea.
Okay.
I'm not a big
Okay.
picky person.
Um, Phone call or email?
I think I like old school. I send a lot of emails, but I really would like to connect on a phone call. I think that's better for me.
Okay. And what is one of the goals that you have set for yourself that you're most proud of that you've accomplished?
That I've accomplished.
Yeah.
I think that I started making some short videos regarding my business. And I think that me getting out of my comfort zone and being in front of a camera and videotaping myself has really been beneficial and made me more comfortable in life.
Okay. Yeah, that's a tough one that I'm still working on. So I think
You're
everybody
doing
has
great.
that. I think
You're
everybody
doing
has that
great.
one. Thank you. So that was it. Thanks for playing along.
Okay, that wasn't too bad.
See, everybody's so worried about that.
Yeah.
But it is not bad. It just gives us a chance to get to know you a little bit more personally, I think. Before we move on to some bigger and better questions. So what I want to dive into on this half is your business. So in 2017, you started Western New York Divorce Financial Advisors. Can you tell us, how you came about to make that decision?
Well, I was working in the nonprofit environment as a business manager at a big church. And one of my friends who's a financial planner said to me, you really should get this certification. With your personal experience and your accounting experience, you would do a great job at this. So I looked into it. And the next thing I knew, I was leaving my job and taking the certification and starting a new life over at 50. I was going to be
Wow.
50 that year. So it was just timing wise, when I looked into it, when I went through my own divorce, I felt that it was so emotional. And if I wasn't an accountant, I wouldn't have known half the things that I needed to do.
Hmm.
And I had seen a lot of my girlfriends go through it where, they didn't know what was going on. That, one didn't know how to get insurance, after the divorce, cold
Wow.
blood, and then it ends. And, there's so many what if questions that
Yeah.
I really felt, I had a good lawyer, but the lawyers look at the legal aspects or the mediators. You really need to work with somebody that understands the financial uncertainties because you're going through a lot. And my divorce happened during the crash of 2008. And my former
Oh.
husband was in commercial real estate.
Oh.
So, big income dip. And, you had to figure out creative ways to make sure that I was, that I was taken care of, but he was taken care of too. And how did we build upon that?
Wow.
So and then as I got into it and started doing it, it felt right. I like helping people. And this is one of the lowest, like it's one of the most difficult points in their lives. And you really have to have empathy to understand what they're going through.
Well, and having gone through it yourself, that adds so much more compassion for other people because you've been there.
Right. And and even though I was taking care of the monthly bills, there were things that I found out about, there was financial, like, there was things that I didn't know were going on, and I'm an accountant, so
Yeah.
so can you imagine, someone that's not really privy, there's some spouses that don't know anything about their finances in the
Right.
marriage,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I mean,
so I help.
usually one takes care of most things instead of, having two people dipping their hands into it. One usually just takes over. They're more organized or they're more detailed or, just whatever.
Yeah, in my marriage, it was the same way. I took care of the daily finances, and then we would talk together about, future finances, investments, and retirement and things like that. And it worked. And, I was very fortunate when I went through my divorce that I was privy to all those things and nothing was taken away from me. That doesn't always happen,
Right, right. So
you
so
know.
who is your um type of client? Is it more female or is it a mixture of male and female?
I would say the majority of my clients have been female.
Okay.
Most of them are are not the person that really is working or is working part-time that really wants to have a true understanding of the finances. I have had some male clients too that just wanted to make sure that, when they ended the divorce, they had enough to live on too. I mean, you're going from two, most of the time, two incomes to one.
Right.
And that's a stark reality. You're supporting two households. So, I've had clients come to me prior to even going to a mediator and a divorce attorney to kind of get their things in a row to really understand, can I financially afford to get divorced?
Yeah.
And, and like I said, my personal experience of going through the crash of 2008 with all that uncertainty really played a good part in me understanding, especially the uncertainties we're facing now with COVID.
Right. Yes. Yeah. This adds a whole other layer to it. If
Right.
and I don't know if you've seen an uptick or not with COVID, everybody sort of together for more time than you really anticipated until retirement age.
Well,
Do you see a tick up or not
I
yet?
I have seen a tick up since January.
You have.
Yeah, in 2020, the divorce rate was actually down because I think people didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
They
Well,
couldn't,
and they were stuck.
uh,
Yeah.
and they were stuck. And I've seen an uptick in people contacting me. I recently had a woman that contacted me that has been married 48 years.
Oh
She's
my
70 years
God.
old, but she doesn't want to be married anymore. I mean, like, and that's tough.
Oh,
That's hard, that's really hard
yeah.
to really help, somebody in those lines. And sometimes I've done work for people, gotten all their financial stuff. There was somebody I worked with prior to COVID, and she was a nurse, and I checked in with her during COVID. And she goes, "No, I don't think I'm going to do that now, but if I do get divorced, if I do think about it, I can come back to you and relook at my finances at that point." So,
Wow.
I just kind of really, I'm not a financial planner. I want to specify that. I only work with people. I call it the marital transition process because it is a process. It's when you start it, it's in the midst of it, and then to make sure you're okay at the end of your divorce.
Can you talk a little bit more about the process? Like if someone were to come to you and say that they're thinking about it, they're thinking about making that leap. What types of things do you go through with the client?
Well, I go through all their financial information. Usually I gather all their documents, any checking, savings account, retirement assets, even taxes. I like to look at a couple of years of the taxes to make sure, especially if you're not the spouse that's handled most of the finances, to make sure there's, did they take out a 401k? Just little things like that.
Sure.
So the biggest step is gathering that and making a budget and seeing really exactly what your budget is and what it is on a month, on a monthly and a yearly basis. What do you need to live on with the minimum,
Hmm.
and understanding that, and then just, are you ready to do this? I mean,
Yeah.
even myself, I had the divorce attorney's phone number in my purse for probably 4 months before I went to meet with them. It's a
Wow.
hard decision, it's a very tough decision. I don't want to see anybody get divorced, but
Yeah.
if you're getting divorced, you should really make wise choices about your future finances.
Wow. So you must wear many hats though, because you're not just wearing the accounting hat. You've got to be wearing the psychology hat and just all these different, because they're coming to you and they're just upset and maybe frustrated, maybe angry, maybe, what all these other feelings. So you have to kind of weed through all of that to get to what you need.
Right. And one of the first things I usually say to my client, I say, I know it's difficult, but you need to think with your head and not your heart. And that's so hard.
Yeah.
And I've connected myself with a bunch of different people, different professionals. There's a lot of times that you do need to talk to a mental health professional when you're going through this. When you break in a relationship, it's a grieving process. You really have to learn how to be an individual and to really understand that. So I try, if I feel that emotionally they need to talk to somebody, I will say, I'm not a therapist. You can talk to me, you can vent to me a little bit, but if I don't know how to deal with that. I know that how I felt during the process. I know how some of my friends felt during the process, but it's unique for each individual.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. So, if someone wanted to reach out to you, to learn more about the things that you're doing, what is the best way for them to connect with you?
You can give me a call at 716-633-1605. I offer a complimentary introductory confidential phone call because I know
Okay.
how sensitive, this is.
Yeah.
And I do have a website which I can provide, Western New York Divorce Financial.com. So
Okay.
I can give you all that information. I do have a Facebook page, and so I'm out there, I'm on LinkedIn. There's a lot of different ways to connect with me, but I just feel that I really need to talk to somebody to see where they are in the process to determine how I can help them along the way.
Okay.
I think the most important thing when you start the divorce process, if I had to give a recommendation, is educate yourself on not only what's required in your state, the methods of divorce. I really think the most important thing when you go through this process is to educate yourself. Understand your state requirements, understand, what's premarital, what's marital, understand the methods of divorce, um, mediation, collaborative or litigation, and really take the time to gather your documents, anything you're related to. And then when you start hiring professionals, make sure you vet them. Don't just hire a professional because your cousin Susie had a good experience, because just like you, every divorce is unique. So
Yeah.
really have a list of questions and really get to know that person, because when you do this, you're opening up your whole marriage. You have to be completely honest to make sure you get the things to settle the way you do. I mean, especially if children are involved, you might need
Right.
to worry about their college or cars or insurance. And there's just a whole bevy of things depending on, where you are in your marriage cycle and how long you've been married. So just educate yourself. That's, if I had to give one piece of advice, that's what I would say.
Wow. So speaking of pieces of advice, if someone right now is thinking about this, or maybe they've started the process, what pieces of other advice would you give them? Do you have some other advice other than really learning, about just all the pieces to this puzzle? Because it isn't as simple as making that decision. Like you said, you're opening up your whole marriage to other people, and a lot of people are very private about what they've been dealing with, maybe, or going through, and then having to make the decision, but then having to probably go over in detail all the pieces to that has got to be difficult.
Right. And you really need to understand what was yours. You need to have the documentation to prove everything financially. I mean, if you were working and you stopped working and it was premarital 401k, that's yours. If you inherit money and you don't commingle it with the marital assets, that's yours. These are little things that, if you were married over 10 years, you might be entitled to their Social Security. I mean, there's
Right.
so many different aspects of it that you
Wow.
really have to educate yourself. And then even dividing the retirement assets is another, another, it's another whole world to get into with quadros and different things along those lines. So I think you really have to define what your priorities are. Okay.
Okay.
Sometimes I've met women that are in their 40s, their priority is to keep the marital home. They don't really care about the retirement. They figure they can catch up. And that's fine. But can you afford to stay in that home? Can you afford to pay the mortgage? Or in 5 years, you're bankrupt because you've put everything into this house. I know you might need to stay in the same school district, but I always say your kids will remember the time you've spent with them and that you can afford to do things with them, not the house they grew, I mean, they'll remember the house they grew up in, but that doesn't make a home.
Yeah.
I had a big house, and, when my son went off to college and we downsized, he's like, I never understood why we had that big house. I was never happy there. And it's like, really, I thought I was giving him the best life, but you
Right.
know, you have to see what your priorities are. I always say, make a list of your priorities of what you want to get out of this, put it aside, and then look at it 2 weeks later. Is that what you really need?
Yeah.
Because sometimes you deal in the emotion and not the factual.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really, and I'm not saying to deny your emotions, because
Yeah.
everybody's got emotions in this process, but just think, educate. That's the most important thing. Even myself, I read a bunch of books before I started the process just to make sure I knew what was going on. And now there's YouTube videos about a lot of different things. Like I said, I've started some YouTubes with general information too, and there's a lot of different things out there to get some ideas. But like I said, every state is different, and whatever method you go through is different in the whole process too.
Well, and I think what's really important is it is a process. So it's not just a decision that you make and then you make the decision and it's over. It's just the beginning of a very long process. So
Right.
yeah.
That's why I call it a transition,
Yeah.
because
I
you
think
have to transition from, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm in the midst of it. Okay, it's over. Now, what do I need to do to take care of all my finances? I mean, after the divorce is over, you might need a quadro, you need a new will, you need to change your beneficiaries. I mean, I've got a whole checklist when a
yeah.
divorce is over, just to make sure you don't forget those things, because sometimes that happens. I mean, look at,
Oh
there's
my
been a
gosh.
lot of
Yeah.
celebrities that have recently passed away that have been in midst of their divorces and might have updated the will, but they're contesting it and everything. So there's a lot of things out there that you really need to take care of even when the divorce is over.
Well, and going back to what we were talking about in the very beginning about having a support system, I think that you give them the direction that they need. They can come to you. You already know all the different layers that are involved in this. Because I can't imagine, and I mean, I've never been through divorce, but I can't imagine the stress level, the frustration, probably anger. I mean, all the grief steps that you have to go through. You can't be clear headed. There's going to be times when you're not thinking straight. And if you have somebody like yourself who, has done it themselves and has a process and has a checklist and make sure that you're crossing all your T's and dotting all your I's, you make that process a little bit easier. If they had to go through it alone, that would it just makes so much more sense to go to somebody like you and to help them through that.
Right. I'm just another piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I've taken mediation training and I volunteer as a mediator, but I wouldn't be a mediator because I really feel that I focus on the finances. And
Yeah.
and that's the thing. I recently had a friend who's been with a mediator for well over a year, and she's like, she's not doing it.
Um,
Just because, well, but she was recommended by my cousin. These are the things that you have to really make sure you have a good support system. And it might be a divorce support group. I'm now recently involved in the Center for Hope of Western New York, which helps deal with people with narcissistic relationships.
oh, wow.
I'm the treasurer on that board. It's a new organization. And, a lot of times when people are leaving relationships like this, it's that situation and they don't know how to get out. And
Yeah.
there's financial issues and emotional. We have mental health professionals and even holistic. You have to do what's best for you. I mean, you've heard of the divorce diet. Some people start working out, some people travel. Everybody has to do what makes them feel good about themselves.
Right.
And that's the important thing. And like I said, the most important thing is surround yourself with the professionals that you feel comfortable with. I mean, I've had a lot of friends that had two attorneys. One was recommended by a friend, didn't work out, and then they're on the second, and you're paying all that money. So it can be expensive too, but it doesn't have to be. As long as you are conscious of the path along the way and how you can streamline it the best to your abilities. Not everybody can go through mediation. I couldn't go through mediation. I mean, I was very blessed that I always got my checks on time. And, my former husband, I wrote in their college. I mean, there's so many things to think about. My son was 10 at the time we got separated, but I thought about college.
Yeah.
Didn't think about car insurance. You have boys, you know how expensive that is.
Yep.
So it's like you have to balance everything.
Yeah.
So now I don't make those mistakes with my clients. So,
and there's a lot on your plate. I mean, they're just, you just mentioned a few of the things, but they're, you're taking two lives that have been one and you're breaking them individually, and all of those things are going to be split. It's a lot. It's a lot. And
It
then
is a
just
lot.
throw on the emotions, just the idea of the whole process, and what you're going through. That's just a lot.
And when there's children involved, the first Friday night you're home alone, like, what do I do with myself? It's like, that's another part of it too, especially when the children, and that's what I always say too. Don't get the children in the middle. The best compliment my 19-year when he was 19 gave me was, Mom, you and Dad never said anything bad about each other,
Wow.
to him. And to me, I went through my divorce. That was, 5 years after my divorce. That's how I want to be pictured. You know what I mean? Think about how you want to be like 5 years after this is over, and think about how you handled the situation. And that's the most important thing. Because if you drag it out, it's not hurting anybody but yourself, really.
Right. Wow. Yeah. Well, you know what? You've given us a lot to think about. And I'm sure that there are people out there right now that are contemplating this big decision, and it is quite a big decision. So if you're interested and you want to get in touch with Gina, I will have the information on the podcast. So your email and your phone number, your web address, and so that they can easily find you. And reach out, have the conversation. It could save you so much frustration, time, money, just to have the conversation. And it's a big decision, and I don't wish it upon anybody, but when it happens, just make sure that you're taking care of yourself, and that what direction you want to go in, and that you have support. And I think that will help you get through it all. So thank you so much for being with us today. I'm really glad that you were here and to share your story. You took your experiences throughout your life, and now with your company, you're helping so many people get through probably one of the most difficult times of their lives.
Yeah, I really feel when I get a thank you letter from a client, and I've gotten a few, that really makes me feel good. And that's what I want to do. I want to help people's divorce not take 3 years like mine. So if I can do that, I've accomplished a big deal. So, but thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. A lot of people don't know about this. And
No, that I don't think they do. And I mean, I've had friends over the years get divorced, and they pretty much, it's them and their spouse and the lawyer or the mediator, and that's it. And they are learning as they go. But you've been through it, and the process, and you can just make it a little bit easier. You don't have to tackle it yourself.
yes,
So
thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you, everyone, for listening to Sharp HR Career Corner. If you're trying to figure out your next career move, you need to talk with somebody, please contact Sharp Human Resources. We'd love to help you out. Go to sharphumanresources-buffalo.com for more information. If you enjoy if you enjoy listening to our podcast, I encourage you to download the podcast, leave a comment, and share with others that you know. The more downloads and comments and likes our podcast receives, the better our ratings and the easier we can be found. So thank you in advance. Until next time, be kind, everyone. We need to show a lot more kindness in the world, and it starts with you and I. Thanks again for listening, and have a great day.